Welcome to Pittsburgh Theological Seminary's Alumni Days 2021. We are so glad that you are here. My name is Erin Davenport. I graduated from PTS in 2005 and am honored to introduce two of my fellow PTS alums, James Foster Reese and Carolyn Cranston. James Foster Reese is a native of Harrodsburg, Kentucky. He holds a BS from Knoxville College, a Master of Divinity from Pittsburgh Theological Seminary in 1949, a Master of Education in Religious Education from the University of Pittsburgh, and an Honorary Doctor of Divinity from Knoxville College. He is an ordained minister of Word and Sacrament in the PCUSA. Jim received the Distinguished Alumnus Award in Specialized Ministry from PTS in 2003. Dr. Reese is the recipient of several awards and has served the Presbyterian Church USA for 71 years in many capacities, from pastor to director of the Racial Ethnic Ministry Unit of the PCUSA to interim executive presbyter in New York City. Jim is a treasure and a true blessing to PTS, the church, and God's kingdom. We are delighted to share his words of wisdom. Thanks for being with us today, Jim.
Thank you.
And Carolyn Cranston.
Glad to be here.
Thank you. Carolyn Cranston is a native of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. She holds a BS from Indiana University of Pennsylvania and a Master's of Divinity from Pittsburgh Theological Seminary in 1999. She has served as the Director of Alumni and Church Relations at PTS for the past 21 years. An ordained pastor in the PCUSA, Carolyn also serves part-time at Pleasant Hills Community Presbyterian Church here in Pittsburgh. Thank you so much to both of you for being with us. And Carolyn, I will hand it over to you to interview, share, and speak with James Foster Reese.
Thank you, Erin. Well, Jim, I've known you for going on 18 years, and you have blessed my life since the moment I met you. So I'm excited to share some of your wisdom with others. 2020 and 2021 have left the church in largely unknown territory. Have you experienced a similar feeling of unknown throughout your ministry?
Oh, yes. I started out in 1949 when I came to Pittsburgh, the Senior Theological Seminary. I came to having majored in chemistry. So when I saw Greek, it really was Greek to me. But one of the things through the ministry, and there are several more that I'll mention of times when I really didn't know how this new event is going to affect me in my life. And one of those was just coming to the seminary with a graduate college degree in chemistry and finding that this is not the particular degree that you need to come to seminary. But I found also the willingness to be able to find all of these differences if you are willing to put yourself down and try to find out how can you become what you asked to be, despite what you think you own. So that was one. Second one was when I went to my first pastorate in Wilcox County, Alabama. It was strictly a rural section. The Pittsburgh Courier had identified Wilcox County, Alabama as, quote, the hellhole of Alabama. I mean, segregation was very, very strong in that county when I was there. I want to back up and say, during my time in Pittsburgh, I did not experience a single incident of discrimination. In fact, there were two things that I felt are worth sharing. One was that when the restaurant around the corner where we would go as students said one day that they didn't think that it was a good idea for the, quote, colored student to come. And the student said, well, if the colored student can't come, then we can't come. That was one. The second one was I went to preach as a part of the Preaching Association. And I noticed that particular Sunday when I got there, Sunday school was still going on. And I noticed a lot of people leaving after Sunday school was over. And I said, well, this is so strange. But it didn't bother me. I preached. The reception was good. But the next week, they sent a word to the Preaching Association in Pittsburgh that they would be happy if they did not have, quote, the colored student to come and preach anymore. And nobody said anything to me, but the young man who was in charge of the Preaching Association said to the church, if Jim Reese can't come, then nobody will come. So I can say in my 3 years at Pittsburgh, I felt I was in a climate of total support and total relationship. So I was not surprised because I didn't have any knowledge. But when I went to my first church in Camden, Alabama, really with 3 churches, I had 3 churches to start with. That's always been remarkable to me. In a time in your life where you have the less knowledge, you get the most to do. But it worked out well. Here again, I had no idea what I was supposed to do as a preacher in a rural economic area. But I found that the thing that people liked was the fact that you would love them despite anything else. And so I had a good ministry there. So good that in my last year, no one had registered to vote in that county as a Black person since 1906. It took me 18 months to find that registration place. And I went in and asked, I would like to get a form to register to vote. And one of the registrars said, I have no idea what you're talking about. And I'm here today because I didn't challenge her and say, yes, you do, because you're a registrar and you know what I'm talking about. So back to the original question that Carolyn asked. I found the support from family, support from people, so that I always approach the possibility that this can be a better situation now. And later on, when I left Wilcox County and went to work for the Presbyterian Church, there was a very vast shortage of African-American pastors. They asked me if I would take on the responsibility of being the staff person to find ways to increase the number. Here again, I had no knowledge, but I had a willingness. And I'm happy to say that we increased the number of persons, not just African-American, but other racial ethnic groups also. And when I started, the number was 55 in seminary. 5 years later, we had it up to 110.
Wonderful.
So, but it was a willingness to find a way to do what had been asked. And one last one. One day, the director of the race ethnic unit, not the race ethnic unit, but vocation union came to me and said, Jim, Lilly Endowment has some funds available for African-American pastoral development. Would you like to apply for it? Oh, yes, I applied. We got a grant. African-American pastors at that time, only 18% of them were taking continuing education as a part of the ministry. We got that group from 18% to 55% in 3 years. So I'm saying, yes, that's as I look now at where the church is, I feel that the rewarding aspect is twofold. One, the willingness to be what you want the outcome to be. And secondly, to not be discouraged if it doesn't come if you wait on the Lord, and he will give you opportunity. So yes, Carolyn, there have been times in which I felt depressed, sometimes when I did not see the reward, but always feeling that it does not have to be like this.
And that has served you well. Let me ask you this. How would you advise pastors and educators to consider the future beyond 2021?
Well, I think one thing would be to feel there are resources available that can help you beyond where you are now. That's one. Secondly, and not in a numerical order, but secondly, the willingness to try to be what you want the outcome to be. It's not going to happen by happenstance, but it can happen if you work at it. If you're willing to put what you can with it, you can bring back what you want, you can do what you want. That's one. And there are resources now available that they did not have. We have no, at least I don't, and I'm going to include a whole lot of other folks. We don't have any idea what Zoom has as possibility. We can now, and we have to be careful, we can now have services when no one else is present but you and the audience to which you speak. So I think that that's one other possibility, that we can find a way to utilize these new resources. The church people now are really waiting for this time to end. And it will end. It's not going to end for everyone at the same time, but it's going to end for all of us sometime. And we have the opportunity, I think, with the new resources and resources that we have not even found yet to be, we have the resources to enable us to do. So I look forward to the coming days, not as different as much as I do as with possibility. I look forward to the coming time with possibility. Why? Because what we have now can expand to what we can have in the future. And therefore we can build relationships that none of us can visualize now, but relationships that can help us as we go into the future. And do not be afraid to seek a relationship with some other persons, because there are far more people out there who are looking forward to being related to each other than we've ever realized. And all they're waiting for is for someone to give them an opportunity to make that possible. And I would think that one of the persons to make that possible are those of us who have been called by God in Jesus Christ to that responsibility.
Thank you. So I have a three-part question. Have you attended virtual church in the last year? What do you think about it? And how have you responded to this new format personally?
Yes, I have attended. I responded to two ways. One, a couple of more times than that, and people have asked me to participate in the service, and I find that exhilarating. Here, there's a service going on in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and they cut to Jim Reese in Hartford, Connecticut, and I get to say something not only to that group, but to anybody else who's listening. So the unchained possibilities really is to me a very rewarding thing. Just to be able to sit in one place and to do something in some other place. And I think another thing that we can do, it can now mean that you can have a service. And if you want a special person to say something or a special person to sing something, you can put that into your service and they can be 500 miles from where you are. But now for that moment, they're in your service at that time. I think that the unchained possibilities that we have in front of us it's amazing. It's amazing. I think we have no idea how many possibilities there are because we're just beginning to be on the threshold of that. And I'm not going to say it's unlimited, but I'm saying it's going to be a lot more opportunities. And just think, you can have a service in New York, and you can have someone in California who speaks as a part of that service. I mean, I don't think we have an idea of how great that possibility can be.
It will be exciting to find out, won't it?
Yes, it will be. It will be.
Jim, every week I speak to a lot of pastors who are describing themselves as feeling particularly tired and worn out throughout this whole COVID-19 experience. Can you describe times in your ministry that you have felt tired and worn out? And tell us how you came through that and how you have managed to have sustainability throughout decades of ministry.
Yeah, there have been times. I can remember in my first year, especially when I just really didn't know what's the best way to do this. And I found some results helpful in finding not on the other ministers, but just to talk to someone who can give you a support and a helpful viewpoint on where you are. What I believe is going to happen in answer to what you were saying, I don't have an idea of how the church, quote, might suffer when it goes back to what we thought it was 3 years ago. I don't know. I don't know. I think there's a real support for continuation of services for people in the church, at the church site. I think there's still going to be a continuation for some services, and especially for meetings by Zoom. But I still think that the whole feeling of coming together and sharing a relationship with one another, to be able to shake hands in the middle of a service, to have an opportunity for post-worship services when we can share with each other. I don't think that we have gone this number of years in the past and to see that to evaporate. So I would say to start with Jim Reese and the other persons who may feel tired, sometimes worn out, sometimes disillusioned, this also shall pass. Because there is a God who is going to be on the side of what we are seeking to do. And there's nothing greater than the enthusiasm that you can bring to it. The only thing greater than the enthusiasm is the results of what the enthusiasm makes possible. And I think that's the big piece. That's the big piece. To look forward, not with trepidation, not with disgust, not with unwillingness, but to look forward to the possibility that this can be a new thing, and I'm going to be the one to help make it possible. I'm going to be the one to see that he grows.
That sounds very encouraging for pastors who are feeling kind of worn out. Can you give us a couple examples of where you found your sustainability throughout these past 7+ decades?
Yeah, and of course, I remember when I moved from the pastorate to staff work, and my job was continuing education for pastors. I had no more idea of what that meant than what the word said. But I also knew that I had always practiced continuing education. Every call has 2 weeks in it for continuing education. And I found ways for which I use that. So I think I would say when depression begins to sink in, disillusion, look, first of all, for things that can help you at that time. Because there is something in every ministry that has a rewarding aspect. And if you have to say every day, that was a good service we had today, or whatever it is, find out what that thing is and find out opportunity to make it a rewarding thing in your life. That's one. And secondly, or maybe at number one also, don't try to do it all by yourself. There's no reason why you can't go to some fella, some pastor, some person at the seminary, someone in the Presbyterian. There is someone out there to help every one of us. There is someone. That person may not be easily found, but he or she is there. And if you don't find anybody else, call Carolyn, and if she can't find anybody else, call me, because I'm available. After 71 years of ministry, I think I can be of support and helpful to anyone who feels that he or she is disillusioned and wonders what will come the next day. I believe I can say a word that may help you at that time.
Jim, that's wonderful, and it's so great to hear your advice. I just wonder if I could sneak in one little question that I didn't have written down, and that is,
Okay.
What brings you joy?
What brings me to
Joy.
Oh, what brings me to joy? People. I love people. I think God knew this when He called me, that I love people. I might have loved people as a doctor, but I love people as a minister. So I think that's one thing brings me joy. People. And I mean, it doesn't matter how long we want to talk, how long they want to talk, how often they want to talk, whatever they want to talk about. Hey, I'm ready. I think seriously, and what I said in proof is serious also. I love people. I love people. And I remember my grandson said to me, he was about 12 years old. We were somewhere and I was speaking. He said, "Granddaddy, why do you talk to everybody? Suppose they don't want to talk to you." I said, "Doesn't bother me." I didn't tell him that deep down inside. I said, "They really missing something."
You're absolutely right.
but I really enjoy people, and I'm not. I have a real joy in doing that.
Jim, I can't thank you enough for the time that we have spent and the wisdom that you have shared. And I wonder in closing, if you could give us a closing benediction.
Okay. For all the gifts, oh God, that you have given to each of us, we give you thanks. And now as we look forward to the coming days, continue to give us your guidance, your support, and your wisdom. That what we do may not only be pleasing in your sight, but also for the good of your people. And we give you thanks in the name of Jesus Christ, who makes it all possible for all of us all the time. In his name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.